When I say horror games, what do you think of? Resident Evil? Five Nights at Freddy's perhaps? Well, stop thinking about them, because that's not what we're talking about today. Outlast is one of my favorite survival horror games of all time, and that's because it barely even fits into the genre of survival horror. Most survival horror games involve combat of some sort. You either shoot crows with a shotgun, or crack homeless people's heads open with a lead pipe. Whatever the circumstances are, in most horror games you're able to— That's not true necessarily. Whatever the circumstances are, in most horror games you're able to fight back. The game relies entirely on running and hiding to avoid your enemies rather than just kill them. This mechanic of stripping away any form of defense from the player is absolutely genius. It's something Amnesia would shamelessly steal 3 years prior. Of course I'm contractually obligated to acknowledge the fact that Amnesia beat Outlast at a punch, but while I respect the shit out of Amnesia, it never did capture my attention like Outlast did. I'm sure I've said this in a video before, but I'm small brain and Amnesia has too many big brain puzzles. I like scare to happen without using brain, and that's exactly what Outlast offered me. Outlast is very simple gameplay. You navigate the dark hallways of Mount Massive Asylum with nothing but a camcorder by your side. It has basic zooming in and out functions, but also comes equipped with a night vision mode, which guides the way through the dark interiors of the asylum. But the only problem is it runs out of batteries. Batteries are hidden in various places around the map. These might be scarce in some areas, or you might just be unobservant. But you'll probably run out of batteries eventually, which will shroud you in complete darkness.
Batteries! And the man is gone in the burning porn.
But what hides in the darkness is your biggest threat.
Little pig.
Outlast has many terrifying and unpredictable enemies known as variants. It's heavily implied early on that some sort of sick experiments were done on these people, destroying their body and shattering their sanity. These guys will constantly spout out nonsense and conspiracy theories. Some of the variants will be violent and aggressive, while some tend to keep to themselves. Some variants even offer a nice middle ground where you're never certain if they're gonna kill you or not. You can try your luck with that guy in the corner if you really see fit. I didn't, however. Often or not, the variants will be hostile and it's best to assume they will attack you. And since you can't fight back, how do you defend yourself? Well, you don't huck batteries at them. You can hide in places like lockers or under beds or dark corners, shit like that. Hiding isn't a get out of jail free card, however. If an enemy saw where you went or just got lucky enough to find you, they'll violently pull you out from your hiding place and continue to beat your ass. And the regular variants aren't the only threats you have to worry about. No. The game has much worse. Chris Walker is arguably the most iconic Outlast villain. He's a former soldier turned psychopath. He has one goal, and that is to kill. He commits these mass murders because he believes he's doing the right thing. He believes he's preventing the evil of Mount Massive Asylum from escaping into the real world. In his head, he's the hero, but he's completely blinded by his anger and doesn't recognize how heinous his actions are. He continuously harasses you throughout the game, presenting himself as your biggest threat. I'm sure every player remembers the chills they felt every time they heard his music slowly build in the background. When he's near, all you can hear is his loud footsteps and heavy breathing, and when he finds you, well... Chris Walker is probably one of my favorite video game antagonists to this day. His constant looming presence through the game was probably my favorite part, and since I've died to him so many fucking times, I couldn't wait to see him get his comeuppance by the end of the game. Holy shit, that was fucking amazing. He got turned into tomato sauce, my guy. But besides them, I think this game has one other villain that deserves just as much attention as Chris does.
You gotta have faith. And that's what I'm here for. To make you believe.
Dr. Traeger is fucking terrifying. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've played through this game and still get chills when I see his segment. And at this point, we've only seen how the Walrider experiments have affected the patients of the asylum. We never learned anything about the people behind it until...
You made the right choice here, buddy.
Traeger was subjected to the experiments after Murdoch ran out of patients to use, and he's clearly pissed.
No offense to the man, but I sometimes worry he might just be a little bit crazy. It's understandable when people get scared. There's like to turn to God as anything else. God died with the gold standard. We're on to a more concrete path now. You have to rob Paul to pay Peter. There's no other way.
You have to rob Paul to pay Peter is basically what Murdoch did to Traeger, sacrificing his livelihood for the benefits of the company. Traeger has no reason to torture you other than to prove his point. He has nothing against Miles personally, never addressing him for anything other than a victim for which he will share his knowledge with. He doesn't care who the fuck you are or what you're doing, he just wants an excuse to cause you pain. The scene is supposed to show the player how they haven't seen shit compared to this yet, and it only gets worse from here on out.
Well, money becomes a matter of faith. And that's what I'm here for. To make you believe. You paying attention? Don't pass that on me.
Traeger's short segment is the best part of the game in my opinion. It manages to highlight the game's amazing hiding feature, giving you several potential hiding spots in this narrow corridor. Traeger's death scene is fucking awesome, just look. How to make Traeger juice, step 1, squeeze. I already know that Traeger isn't the most original villain ever. I was half expecting him to tell me how he got his scars or some shit, but regardless, I really enjoyed his character in the game. I thought it was interesting to see how something as evil as what Murdoch was doing can affect someone as evil and heinous as someone like Dr. Traeger himself. They must be doing something real bad if they're able to break a fucking psychopath like him.
I'm sorry, my son. I didn't want to have to do this to you. But you can't leave. Not yet.
Father Martin is a fucking asshole. He's the sole reason you're trapped in the asylum at the beginning of the game. He shows you a video of extreme anal bleedage and puts you in a padded cell. This is when the real game begins. For the next several hours, you're forced to fight your way through hell and back. Your only guide being the bleak directions given to you by Father Martin, as he watches over your horrible journey through the asylum. And his death is incredible, and includes his character perfectly.
No, my son.
I like Father Martin even though I'm not a big fan of cult villains. They're very overused in the horror medium, especially horror games in general.
Devil's just another bitch of the Lord.
When I first heard the name Wall Rider, I was half expecting this motherfucker to be doing half pipes down the corridors of the asylum. Casper turned 14 and now he hates his existence. But the Wall Rider is the key factor behind the game's conclusion, and this game's ending is, well, I don't know how I feel about it. This game's ending has been memed on and made fun of since it came out, and honestly I can't blame anyone who doesn't like it. You get sent to an underground facility and then you hear an astronomical amount of exposition and then you fucking die. Huh? This is so stupid, it's so stupid. I could rail on this shitty writing choice, but honestly I don't blame the developers for this. How would you even end a game like this? You just can't. Yeah, I don't think this ending was great, but it definitely plays into the story they were trying to tell. So fuck it is what it is. Even the game's DLC is really solid. It's called The Whistleblower and it follows this guy named Waylon who originally tipped Miles off to begin with. This DLC is sick because not only does it give us a deeper dive into Mount Massive Asylum and all its lore, but it's also legitimately scary at points. It introduces a few new enemies like the Naked Cannibal Man who chases you around with a fucking saw, and more importantly, the Groom, who might be one of the most terrifying villains in the entire franchise. He's this 6'10" looking motherfucker who tracks down innocent variants and brutally mutilates them before dressing them up as a bride. This dude is almost as intimidating as Chris Walker was. The way he stalks close behind you and kills you almost instantly when he catches you is very unsettling, and watching him die might be one of the most satisfying death scenes in the entire game.
Been beautiful.
I really like this DLC's pacing. It doesn't overstay its welcome at any point. It's a pretty straightforward and compact experience, which is nice and all, but it also causes them to kind of rely more on jump scares than they used to. Walk past a guy, jump scare. Walk past a door, jump scare. Walk in an empty yard.
Oh my god, what the?
I don't even know what the fuck that one was. The original formula of hiding and waiting for your enemy to pass so you can just narrowly slip past them is kinda uncommon now. In Whistleblower, you just walk into a room, a few scary things happen, maybe you'll get chased, and then you leave. I'd honestly like to say more, but not much has changed at all besides what I just mentioned. But we do get a somewhat decent ending where Waylon escapes, and so does the Wall Rider, I guess? I know I've ragged on this game a little bit in this video, especially Casper, the friendly cunt over here, but despite what it might sound like, I actually really love this game. And with the new Outlast coming out hopefully soon, I can't help but think about this game more and more. I also attempt an insane run in this game every year, which means if you die you have to start the game all over again. I've been successful a few times with the main story and at the Wall Rider one, but I've never been able to figure it out in Outlast 2. Speaking of which,
Give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come!
Outlast 2 is a video game. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. But in all seriousness, or as serious as this whack-ass game can allow me to be, Outlast 2 is a fine video game. It looks good, it plays very well, most of the controls are okay, and the scares are pretty damn good. When making a horror game, the only boundaries are the ones you set yourself. I feel like they wanted to do more with the sequel, but they were restricted by the idea of Outlast. The simple idea of Outlast was established in the first game. Realism. Everything in the first game has a somewhat understandable origin story. It might have floating ghost monsters, but it still feels like something that could actually happen. And the second game follows two different ideas. One of realistic horror similar to the first game, and one of psychological horror, but neither are given enough time or care to balance it out. This game feels like it was unsure of what it wanted to be. Pile the game's messy narrative on top of that and you got quite a recipe for disaster. They barely even try to explain the story, they just hope that the scares will carry the game for most players. And that's exactly what my biggest problem is with this game. Fear over content. Okay, so I want to talk about the strangest part of the game, which I have a lot of opinions on. The school.
We're not alone here.
Most people seem to either love or hate these segments, like there's no in between, except for me. Nah, I'm just kidding, I kinda hate them. I feel like these segments had a lot of potential to be really cool, but most of the time you're just running around in the dark like a chicken with his head cut off, and getting chased by spooky scary rape monsters. And these segments incorporate something I despise. They make you run around blindly until you trigger something, I'm not joking. This game really fucking does that. Do I really need to explain why that's fucking stupid? Do I really need to explain why it's lazy to make the player wander around for minutes on end until something randomly triggers?
I'm scared.
You know what? Welcome to Game Design 101. Lesson of the day, don't ever fucking do shit like this ever. I'm overreacting, let's move on. The school segments are meant to bring out the repressed memories of the main character. And the worst part of this segment isn't the dumb puzzles that take place in rooms that are darker than the abyss from fucking Dark Souls. Seriously, does this school have no windows in it? The worst part of the school segments is... yeah, that's what. He's a weird multi-appendage having fuck with a tongue like Freddy Krueger. To say the least, I wasn't very impressed when it came to Rapey McGee over here. In fact, I don't like most of this shit in the school segments at all. But something I did enjoy was the psychological horror in these scenes. Take the transitions for example, you could be climbing over a wall and then bam, you're in the school again. I really liked it the first couple times, but it started to get really old after they did it over and over again. I would be getting really into what was happening in the overworld just for the game to be like, nope, you're back to the school again. Another one is the monster appearing out of nowhere and making you shit yourself. And while I didn't always find his looming presence scary after the jump scares, it was still a nice change of pace from the psychotic hillbillies you faced the majority of the game. Also, he has potentially one of the scariest scenes in the game. You're forced to crawl under these stalls to avoid the rape monster as he searches for you. You're forced to use sound to detect where he's going to attack from. It's a really good segment. I wish the rest of the game had more stuff like this. The village is a clusterfuck. You spend half the game navigating under it, around it, through it, up it. This is home to some of the scariest and worst moments. For example, sections like the cornfield are effective as hell, while scenes spent with one of the main villains of the game feel extremely flat. And an unpopular opinion I have is Marta is actually dope as fuck. She's easily one of the scariest enemies in any horror game I've played. And most of her dialogue is, God loves you, God loves you, God don't hear that man, and dumb shit like that. Also, is Marta human? I mean, I think she is, but like, look y'all, why is she so pale? This bitch is like a Tim Burton character, she's whiter than milk. Also, she has a giant pickaxe thing? Whatever, I'm calling it the cunt stick.
Bitch, you think you can hold me? I know magic.
Marta is this game's Chris Walker, and at times I would argue she is scarier. There's this really great scene where you have to slowly push this wagon to try to jump over this wall, and the whole time she's stalking you in this tiny little area. It's very unsettling. Another highlight would be collecting the hook from the butcher building and having to use it on the door while she's fucking chasing you. I love that shit, dog. The other enemies you'll face in this segment are villager male number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And oh shit, did I mention villager male number 3? These villains play similarly to the variants from the first Outlast game. Some will straight up chase you down while some just ignore you. There's also Grandma Villager, who activates an inescapable QuickTime event in which you just straight up kick this old lady in the chest. God damn, I straight up just cracked her ribs, no doubt. Her lungs are probably fucking collapsed and I'm a goddamn monster. And why is this old lady the only person you can fight back against? Is it because you have no choice, or does Blake really not like old ladies? In these village scenes, the game just prefers to do chase segments instead of actual Outlast gameplay. This game more or less eliminates the original hide-and-seek vibe of the first game in favor of, oh fuck, oh shit! And don't get me wrong, I love chases as much as the next guy, but this is just too much, man. This game might not always seem like it, but it's very linear. It's not necessarily a bad thing, linear games are great, it's just that the environment selected doesn't fucking work for this at all. In the original Outlast, the environment was just a big ass asylum. Even more specific than that, it was a series of hallways. This game is set in a big ass forest and you have one selected path that you have to go down. This will result in you running around in circles at times, just trying to desperately figure out where to go. As a group of angry, diseased hillbillies try to cut your ass off with machetes.
Condemned to bear a mark of shame.
After you do escape the village, there's a certain group you'll meet before the heretics. The fucking syphilis group. Let's play the disgusting dying hillbillies game. Alright folks, it looks like the first contestant is shitting right in his hand in order to throw it at me. Okay, game show over, game show over. I actually kinda like this area, not because I have a shit fetish or something. Why the fuck did I put that in the script? I like this area because it's sad and gross and it's pretty damn funny. Also, if one of these hillbillies who are probably lighter than the kids in Africa even touch Blake, he straight up kicks them in the fucking face. Did you really need to be that aggressive? In the first Outlast, you don't have a sprint meter. In this game, Blake loses all his stamina after running for literally 2 seconds. Dude, you're in your mid-20s and at your peak physical health. Why the fuck do you have the stamina of a chain smoker? I think they did this to make up for how fast Blake can run when he's going straight. When he's in a corridor, Blake runs like Usain Bolt. Oh my god, I'm getting whiplash just watching. But when running outside, he automatically loses all of his speed when he steps on a rock or something, which makes running very inconvenient and uncomfortable thing to do in this game. Which is nice because the entire game is built around running. The second half of this game is actually my favorite. There's a really great scene where it rains blood and it looks dope as fuck. And there's an amazing part in this little boat which I won't spoil if you haven't played the game, because it's easily the best part. In this segment of the game, you face up against the heretics, or as I refer to them, scary naked mud hillbillies. You're here because, oh fuck, I forgot to tell you about the story. That's probably because this shallow ass messy plot doesn't allow me to do that, dude. So the plot for Outlast 2 follows a couple by the names of Blake and Lynn, who traveled to the middle of Arizona to discover what happened to a missing pregnant woman. Their helicopter of course crashes because of a giant beam of fucking light. Blake then searches for Lynn only to find her pregnant as fuck. And then they get separated again, and you're tasked with finding Lynn across the entire game, as she's being held by the heretics, who are led by Val. And then there's her arch nemesis, Fabby Priestman, who I forgot the name of. Oh, it's Noph! Hi, I didn't even have to Google that shit this time. It's Noph, it just came to me. Fun fact about Noph and Marta, apparently they be fucking. So yeah. Have fun erasing that from your head. So apparently the enemies and Blake in this game are all going crazy from being exposed to these radio tower things set off by the company from the first game. A government branch that somehow still has funding. The radios in question send microwaves to your brain, causing you to go, well, fucking insane. And this whole crazy and semi-interesting premise is explained to you never. Apparently you can find a note in some random sleeping bag in a hidden beachside. Hey Red Barrels, just a suggestion, maybe don't treat your plot like it's a fucking secret lore thing. Believe it or not, this game makes literally no sense without you telling us. You did it in the first game, what's wrong with doing it now? So after saving her from the underground heretics base, which is fucking horrifying by the way, she's expected to give birth, and when she does, she says,
There's nothing there.
so apparently Blake is just crazy and he imagined everything. Wow, how exciting. Knopf slits his throat and then the sun fucking explodes, and I guess this would be a good time to discuss this game's school plot. So basically the reason Blake has been imagining the school the whole game was because one of the fathers broke his friend's neck whilst trying to molest her. Are you fucking kidding me? You didn't need this to be in the plot. You're not saying anything new. It's just gross and sad. What, did you expect anyone to be like, wow, Red Barrows, you're really pushing the boundaries for game design? Fuck no. Guys, I love you, but this is just stupid. Literally since the beginning of the game, I saw where this lame-ass twist was going. Put that in heavy quotes because this twist is so bad, I wanted to twist my fucking testicles off. What's my final thoughts on Outlast 2, the black sheep of the franchise? I would give the game a 6 out of 10 for the pretty good gameplay and the semi-interesting story, but the fact that they included that shitty twist about Jessica and the fact that they treated it like it was anything special brings it all the way down to a 4 out of 10 for me. This game is solid for the most part, but it really disappointed me and even disgusted me at times. But now that I'm done covering the Outlast series, I have to say Outlast 2 feels kinda disappointing, especially since the first one is such an essential horror experience in my eyes. So in conclusion, was Outlast ever really that scary? Yeah, I think so. The first game, its DLC, and even the second game a lot of the time are pretty fucking scary, despite the fact that Outlast 1 might feel kinda dated and Outlast 2 might just be kinda bad. I'd say these games have actually aged pretty well and can still scare the fuck out of you if it's your first time playing them. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and that was Outlast. 10 years later. Kinda.